Next up, we have Sriram. Sriram is a freshman at Rutgers University, and he aspires to be a successful businessman. Two of his passionate hobbies are dancing and public speaking. Sriram was an officer at SAASA, a dance-oriented club where he choreographs for shows. As a president of the YLP Toastmasters Advanced group, he runs meetings and gives speeches with peers of high speaking levels. He's a recipient of multiple awards at Toastmasters. During his free time, Sriram likes to listen to music, plays the guitar, and loves to explore anime and video games. He strives to constantly grow his understanding of the world with an open mind. His speech tonight is, "Aren't those for kids?"
Children always have fun on their minds. It's all they want to do, whether they're at school or at home, doing chores or homework, whatever it may be, they just can't wait to finally be done and have fun. Of course, what's fun for an individual is very relative, and people pick their interests and their hobbies. Some people gravitate towards a certain sport. Other people watch movies. Some people put their heads into books. But what I considered fun as a child was just a little bit different from what other people found fun. For me, fun meant watching anime. I would watch it, talk about it, be involved with it. It was my entertainment. But then something interesting happened. The older I got, the more shunned I was for what I enjoyed. So shunned to the point that I became ashamed. And I would go as far as to hide the fact that I even liked anime from my peers. There was nothing wrong with what I was doing, but anime turned from an open hobby into a guilty pleasure. And I started to wonder why. If you look at the highest grossing anime in America, these are the titles you will find. Pokemon, Bakugan, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Beyblade. Now, if you're born in the early 2000s, chances are you recognize most, if not all, these titles, but everyone knows what Pokemon is. A children's anime about capturing fantastical beasts, befriending them, and using them for battle. And all the other animes I listed as the top grossing in America are similar children's anime and all have very similar plots. So it's clear to see why many of us would have the perception that anime is childish. And it's normal for us to consider animation as childish, because what comes to mind when you think about animation? Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, Disney, all things that are geared for kids. But when I say I like anime, I'm not talking about children's anime. What myself, Michael B. Jordan, Samuel Jackson, Megan Fox, Zac Efron, Will Smith, what we all watch and enjoy is something different. And yes, everyone I just mentioned are big anime fans. So what are we watching? To answer this question, we need to first consider what is anime. And very simply, anime is any animation that is created in Japan. And it's the creation, it's the location of where it's created that makes all the difference. You see, anime is created for a Japanese audience and includes little pieces of Japanese culture throughout. And the Japanese, they use animation as a tool to tell all kinds of story. You will find anime in every genre imaginable and targeted at every age group possible. So if this is the case, and we have all these amazing anime in different genres, why don't we see them? Well, this is because the US only brings in anime that fits their definition of what animation should be. And that is to tell children's stories. So the only anime they bring in are children's anime, and that is what is put into our mainstream media. And Japan, on the other hand, they don't market any of these good anime overseas to other nations. They keep everything domestic. And it is these two things combined that leave many of us in the West with the big misconception about what anime really is. The truth about anime is that it can be deep and complex. It can be analyzed, just like movies and books. For example, a very famous anime called Death Note is about a man who gains the ability to kill whoever he wants, however he wants. And he does this by writing the name of the person he wants to kill, followed by the description of the death. And he writes these in a notebook, which is called the Death Note. And when he finds this book and he discovers this grotesque ability, he doesn't throw it in a drawer, lock it away, burn it, try to get rid of it. No, he uses it. And at first, he uses it to kill criminals, what society would consider wrongdoers. But as the show progresses, we see his God complex increase, his regard for human life plummets. As his killings and his murders go on, we see him follow nothing more than his own crumbling moral compass. It's a great anime where we can see how insanity and paranoia takes over the mind of intelligent individuals when they're given too much power and they abuse it. And this anime also has a great intellectual battle between our anti-hero and the detectives who are trying to catch it. And this creates a very peculiar moral dilemma within the minds of the viewers, because we find ourselves rooting for a psychopath killer instead of the good guys who are trying to catch him. And the main allure of this anime is it brings up a moral question. Should an individual be able to have the power to decide who lives and who dies? It's animes like these which let us delve into human psyche and makes us consider a lot of morals that we don't think about enough. But beyond morals, anime also brings up lots of ethical questions. And a great example of an anime that brings up ethics is Tokyo Ghoul. And this anime is about humanoid creatures called ghouls who live in human societies and pretend to be humans. The only difference between ghouls and humans is that ghouls rely on humans themselves as nutrition. They eat human beings. And they have to, because their bodies literally reject normal food that humans consume. Due to certain circumstances, the main character of this anime, who was once human, turns into a half ghoul. And naturally, he hates what he has become. And while he was fighting his instincts and his innate desire to kill and eat a human, he was found by an organization of peaceful ghouls. And what these ghouls did is they collected suicide victims and used them as nutrition so that they didn't have to kill people who already have life. And as he's living with these ghouls and struggling with his ridiculous identity crisis, he realizes something, that not all ghouls are actually bad. They're simply trying to live their lives just like humans. And this is a crucial discovery. But while he realizes this, he cannot change the society around him, which will view ghouls as nothing more than monsters that must be exterminated. Animes like these have a lot to unpack. Just from an extremely simple synopsis, there is so much that can be broken down and discussed in detail. But behind all the violence, the gore, and the heart-wrenching scenes in this anime, it is asking one key ethical question. Should ghouls be considered evil simply for eating humans? Should we brand them as monsters just because they're higher up on the food chain? And the answers to these questions are further muddled when you consider that humans and ghouls have the same exact levels of intelligence and cognitive abilities, and they have so much in common. Do any of you have the answer to these questions? Chances are you don't, or even if you do, your ideas are not fully solidified in your head. But what if you did watch this anime? You would see the answers unfold in your mind as you see the subtleties of answering this question come into play. You could find your own personal answer to such an ethical dilemma through an anime. So think about who this anime targets. Yes, there's lots of gore and hard to watch scenes, but the underlying message itself requires a higher level of thinking to comprehend. And yes, anime talks about ethics and morals and lots of lofty ideas, but they also talk about things that are more personal to us, things that we might deal with, and a lot of social issues. A beautiful anime called A Silent Voice is about a young man that is dealing with suicide. And part of what stems his mental illness is his own regret for bullying a mute girl in his childhood, a girl who cannot talk. However, he re-encounters her later in his life, and he desperately tries to make up for his past mistakes. And we can see him try to atone for his sins, but as the viewer, we are also seeing the actions that he has taken in the past. These situations aren't so different for what many of us face. Chances are you know someone who has dealt with similar issues or is dealing with them right now. Maybe you yourself have dealt with these issues or you're currently dealing with them. And we can learn by seeing how these characters deal with their emotions and their actions. This anime in particular, it shows us the realities of bullying, not only for the victim, but also the bully. It shows us what it's like to be disabled. It shows us how being suicidal could affect your family. It shows us that people really can change. It shows us that people can forgive and give second chances. And as you watch this anime, you can think about how you would act in these situations. You can think of what kind of effect do you want to create and how are you going to achieve it? But not all anime is doom and gloom about such serious topics. Some of them are really lighthearted. The anime I'm watching right now is about a bunch of teenagers who suddenly gain superpowers. And I'm talking crazy superpowers. One of them can stop time, speed it up, slow it down. Another can think about any object in her head and literally manipulate space itself to become that object. And another person can control all the elements. And with these crazy powers, they could do anything they wanted. They could take on the world. But what do they do instead? They do stupid things like turn their club room into a stadium with a tennis court in the center just so they could play superpower tennis, and that's okay. They decided to be teenagers and do teenage things and have fun despite the gifts that they have been given. And that's really all there is to this anime. But even in a light-hearted comedy anime like this, we can see young adolescent children start to grow up, think about their futures heading into college. They start to consider what happiness means to them and how they want to obtain happiness for the rest of their lives. We can see how anime makes us think about things from different perspectives in ways that we haven't done before, but what makes them different from other stories? What makes them different is their unique delivery. Books are limited by the words on the page. An author can describe a scene as detailed and as vividly as they want, but at the end of the day, most of it is left up to the imagination of the reader. Movies and TVs, they're limited by what the actors are capable of doing, what the cameras can capture, and what can be created through CGI. But animation is limitless. An animator can create any scenery they want, any character they want, any fantastical element they want, and an animator can move all of these things and make them interact however they want. Animation and animators, they have the ultimate freedom in visual entertainment. And animators in Japan tend to be held in a slightly higher regard than animators in other nations, and they have surprisingly large budgets for their projects. And many animes are very well funded. And this leads to a superior level of animation that many of us haven't seen before. They create scenes that are beautiful and can be indescribable. The only way to truly experience this form of art, for those of us who are used to the animation styles of Simpsons or Family Guy or BoJack Horseman, the only way to experience it is to watch anime, because it is this amazing animation coupled with fabulous storytelling that shows us what anime can really be. And yes, at the end of the day, the primary purpose of anime is to entertain, but beyond being entertainment, it can be a passion for people. The same way movies are a passion and books are a passion. People have a passion in collecting things, and anime is also a passion. Yes, there was a time where I was ashamed, and I would hide the fact that I liked anime, but clearly my openness on the subject has changed a lot since then. And thanks to the internet and social media, more people are understanding what anime really is, and especially the younger generation is starting to watch and appreciate anime. And as the number of fans increase around the world, it's becoming more accepted. The more accepted it becomes, the easier it is for people to say, hey, maybe I do want to watch anime. Maybe I'll try it out. And they can do this without being scared of being seen as weird. And when you take this first step, it can open up a whole new world for you. You will be entertained, but you will also be taught crucial lessons. You will be forced to think about new ideas from multiple perspectives. And once you really understand anime, it will help you grow as an individual and can change you into a better person. So be open about anime. Watch it, be curious about it, but most of all, don't be closed off about it and say that it's weird, for your own betterment. And this is what goes through my head whenever I'm talking about anime and someone says, aren't those for kids?